AV Shop Talk, Episode 18.
Podcasting from Boston, Massachusetts and Los Angeles, California, this is AV Shop Talk. Covering the latest audiovisual trends and emerging technologies, this is where the AV pros come to talk shop. With your hosts, Nate Schneider and Jason Griffin.
Welcome to the AV Shop Talk podcast, and tonight we will be cracking open an ice-cold can of Infocom 2015. What do you think about that, Jason?
That sounds great, Nate. I'm looking forward to it. I was regrettably not able to attend this year, but was watching from afar and look forward to chatting with you tonight, getting some of your thoughts on it. Did you have a good time out there?
Yeah, I mean, I had a blast. I keep telling people I feel like a kid in a candy store or a kid on Christmas morning. This is my second Infocom show ever. And I'm just really excited to be out there, to network, to meet all kinds of interesting people, and to see all this gear that's in one place at one time. I love it. It's right up my alley.
Yeah. There's an energy about trade shows that I really enjoy as well. It's just a great time to get re-energized about the industry. And not that you necessarily needed that, but in any event, it's a lot of fun to go out there and you learn a lot. You see a lot of exciting new products, a lot of new technologies, and then of course there's the networking aspect to it as well. You meet some new, really interesting people and catch up maybe with some old friends or people that you only get to interact with and through maybe social media or various online outlets. And it's nice to get together and sort of put a face to the name sometimes and hang out and just kind of talk shop, right?
Yeah, that's what I really like about it. I mean, the training is a huge part of it too. I love taking the training classes to brush up on my skills. Took a lot of networking classes this year, a math for audio and acoustics class that was really good. But
interesting.
It's also the people you bump into. I mean, recently I became a fan of this other podcast called Church Tech Weekly that a gentleman named Mike Sessler puts together with his friend Van Metchke. And, just via Twitter, I was tweeting him, because I knew he was at Infocom. And he said, I said, hey, if you want to meet one of your biggest fans, let me know. I'm here. And he said, yeah, I'll be at, the Elation booth at 2:30. And so I showed up there. I got to meet him, shake his hand. And I really get a lot out of his podcast. I've known about him for the last few months, maybe 2 or 3 months. And it was really cool to get to meet him in person and just, tell him to keep up the good work.
Yeah. I had a similar experience out at CEDIA last year with Mike Wolf, who has the Smart Home Show, which is a podcast that if you're into the smart home or home technology, I would highly recommend, and was able to connect with him out there. And, it's always fun. Like, you feel like you kind of get to know somebody when you listen to their podcast or follow their blog or whatever it is. And to actually get together and sort of meet in person and just kind of, like I said, put a face to the name. I think it's a lot of fun. It's one of many things about going to these trade shows that I really enjoy.
Yeah, I met a lot of interesting people. I mean, too many to name right here, but I mean, just even sitting on the plane, I was sitting next to an engineer from Bose named Ashraf, and he's an amplifier specialist, and he came from the semiconductor world and the electrical engineering world, and just a really interesting guy to chat with. But I mean, even sitting on a bench somewhere, I was sitting on a bench somewhere, and all of a sudden a conversation erupted between a couple guys, and next thing you know, we're talking about music and production, and it turns out this fella next to me, his name is Howard Steele, and he's the principal consultant or designer for Technology Plus Inc. And he ended up talking about how he used to do audio engineering for some pretty big name albums over the years, like America, Frank Sinatra, Alice Cooper. And it was just really cool to be sitting next to a guy like that, just kind of shooting the breeze, that came from that type of background. So anyway, I love those little random experiences. You never know who you're going to bump into.
Yeah, that is very true. And speaking of bumping into people, you were a busy guy out there on the show floor, I know, this year with your audio recorder, and you got a few clips here that we're gonna we're going to share tonight and kind of give some thoughts on.
Yeah, so this was my little experiment this year. I mean, I'm definitely no Ira Glass, and don't have any, NPR style, a time to do that type of. I'd love to. I mean, I'm hoping to be able to do a special episode at some point to kind of take this all in. So if you remember chatting with me and me holding a little Tascam recorder up, and you don't get mentioned in this episode, don't feel bad, because we're only going to touch on a few clips here. But I'm hoping to compile a huge, a big long episode and tell the whole Infocom 15 story from my perspective at some point in time. But we definitely will get to a couple of those clips so you can hear the sounds of the show floor. And, it was a fun little experiment. I'm glad I did it. And, hopefully I can find the time to do some post-production and editing. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the big stories that I was looking at from afar, kind of going into the show, was the keynote presentation. And Nate, I think you told me that you did not attend the keynote. Is that correct?
No, I ended up missing it. My flight, just the way things travel ended up, I couldn't get there in time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was very interesting. I know it was a roundtable format, as opposed to just one guy getting up and giving a talk, and it was all about the Internet of Things, or the IoT, and that's a theme that I'm obviously following all the time in the residential side of the business. This whole concept of the Internet of Things and adding connectivity to consumer grade devices, inexpensive devices that people can then go put in their homes. It's a really huge theme in residential right now, and it's something that over on my other podcast I do, the HomeTech.fm show, we're talking about it constantly. And I thought it was very interesting that Infocom chose to really highlight that in their keynote. It's just not a theme that I hear as much about being talked as much about on the commercial side for whatever reason.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to. I thought it was a little bit odd actually to see the keynote on the IoT, or the Internet of Things, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around exactly what that means. I mean, is there some next level of networked gear that the IoT is talking about here? Like, I guess I'm struggling to come up with a good definition in my mind of what actually the IoT is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is it just anything with a network port, or is there some other level of standardization going on there? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a buzz term right now, and it's one of these things that people can debate about ad nauseum, really. And it's a term for putting connectivity into devices, and these are devices that maybe wouldn't have been connected 1 or 2 or 5 years ago. The big example that people cite all the time as kind of a turning point in the Internet of Things is the Nest Thermostat. I mean, that's an example that everyone can kind of wrap their brain around. It was a device for decades. A thermostat was just a thermostat, and we had some models out there that were connected. And as integrators, I'm sure a lot of people in the audience are going, well, we had connected thermostats way before the Nest, and I get that, but the IoT is really about this broader kind of consumer awareness and sort of. I don't like to use the word mainstream because I feel like we're not there yet, and it's kind of cliche to talk about, but it's getting there. And this idea of just intelligent devices in the home, at least, and I think arguably in commercial integration as well, is we're just going to continue to see more and more of it. And, how this all plays together and why it's significant, or maybe why you think it's not significant, are points that reasonable minds could disagree on. I just thought it was an interesting choice, and I thought kind of telling that Infocom would elect to highlight that in such a prominent way.
Yeah, I think I'm starting to, the more I think about it, so it almost sounds like the IoT has a little bit of I'm trying to think, like, so a device that can like just automatically talk to an app that you download on Android, and you can just kind of control random things in your house basically from an app. Is that kind of what the IoT is in a nutshell?
Certainly part of it, yeah. And that's really where the debate is like, okay, well, everybody's talking about the Internet of Things like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, but like, is it really just like a light bulb that I can control from an app on my phone? Because that's like not all that significant to me. Like, I can do that from the switch that's in my wall. It's like so there's this argument
like
about
Crestron has been doing the Internet of Things for how many some odd years now with their control processors because
and Fred Bargetzi was Crestron's CTO. He was one of the guys in the roundtable of this keynote, and that was a theme that you kept hearing him in the highlight videos that I watched sort of touch on. I felt like subtly, but definitely noticeably was like, hey, look, Crestron's been doing this for decades. Like we've been connecting devices for decades, and this is nothing new. It just is sort of a buzz term for something, connected technology that's starting to make its way into more mainstream applications and consumer applications. And I think that's why it's starting to get more attention. But yeah, the integrators in the audience are sitting here going, oh, we've been connecting devices and adding intelligence to your home for years. And it's just sort of an interesting convergence to see now kind of the consumer grade devices starting at least to catch up with what we're able to do with a fully integrated system like a Crestron or an AMX or a Savant.
Yeah, before we get to the first clip I want to play back for you, Jason, just this week, actually, I'm looking at my Twitter account. Somebody followed me called @SpinCoffee, and it kind of intrigued me, and I'm not sure. It shows like a coffee maker with a little Wi-Fi symbol and then a smartphone right next to it, and I think this is like the definition of IoT right here. It says Spin is the world's first connected coffee maker that uses
exactly
blah 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 blah. But I'm like, oh, okay, so this is what we mean by the IoT. So I don't know. I'm still wrapping my head around what the IoT actually is. But
and we can move on. But like just to kind of point out, like I talk about the Internet of Things a lot from a smart home perspective, but that's just one tiny facet of the Internet of Things, and where it gets really broad and I think easier for people to understand the significance and how this could really, make an impact on the world is when you start talking about smart cities and adding the Internet of Things and connected technology to entire cities. And so you talk about things like more effective energy monitoring, smarter traffic lights that can, monitor congestion and make decisions about patterns and how to route traffic, or there's a million different things that you can speculate on, but that's really what the Internet of Things is about. It's this broader connectivity, and why is that important? So on the commercial side, there's a lot of talk about smart buildings and who's our integrator is going to go in and grab that market, because it kind of feels like there's room for somebody to go in and really dominate that market if you've got a big developer or facility manager who runs, high rises. And you've got all this technology that goes into those high rises to, building management systems. And those have been around also for decades. But again, it's just that technology is getting more sophisticated, more powerful, easier to implement. And that's really what the Internet of Things is about. Gotcha.
All right. Well, with that, we should transition on over to our first audio clip here. And this was one that I think you will enjoy, Jason. I was over at the AV Nation tweet up. It was a packed house, so we actually spilled out into the hallway, and I bumped into a fella named Matt Scott. You may have heard of him. You may have seen him on Twitter.
Yes, of course.
Yep. And so I guess without any further ado, I will play back this audio clip, and we'll find out what you think about it, Jason.
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Queuing it up. All right.
Oh, Resi?
Why would somebody who's heavy
now?
I am recording now.
Just a second.
Is it okay if I use this for the AV Shop Talk podcast?
Of course you can. I highly endorse the AV Shop Talk podcast. It's a great podcast.
That's an honor coming from a man of your stature
It's true.
and ability to dress himself.
Well, thank you.
But I always feel underdressed around you. You're looking sharp.
I don't mean to be rude, but most people usually do.
And you've got the ego to go with it.
A little bit. Just a touch. Just a little bit.
Okay, so my buddy Jason, he's not here at InfoComm. He's a Resi guy. He's a Cedia guy.
He should be coming here.
Why should Jason be coming to InfoComm?
Jason should be coming to InfoComm, because he could hang out with me, and he knows I'm a good time. It's fun.
Okay, there's that.
That's point number one. Point number two should be that...
I was supposed to edit this part out. He got distracted for a minute there. Just, bear with me.
Bear with us. They don't need me. Point number two...
I'll edit that out.
I know you will.
No, I won't.
Point number two should be that as we are Resi guys doing Resi installations, we very often have the opportunity to speak to our clients about their commercial applications, their commercial products, and more often than not, we are actually asked our opinion on their commercial products and their commercial applications that they have to deal with. Because let's be honest, as Resi dealers, a lot of, especially our higher end clients, are business owners, they are managers, they have some authority somewhere with something. Maybe not all of them, but a large percentage of them. So for us as Resi dealers to have no understanding of what proper commercial AV entails and can consist of, we do our clients a disservice if we are open to commenting on their commercial products.
Okay, we can pause it right there. That's enough to chew on. So Jason, what's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go after we hang up tonight and start booking my travel for InfoCom next year.
Wow, he convinced you like that. No kidding.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with him. I think that InfoCom is a relevant show for residential integrators. Obviously travel logistics and everything like that can be difficult. And me personally, I kind of feel like I'm almost in a position where I have to pick CEDIA or InfoCom. And so I usually end up doing CEDIA. But I totally agree wholeheartedly. InfoCom is a show that I follow very closely. I just have to do it through blogs and Twitter and folks like you out there on the show floor kind of, getting recordings and reporting back to the rest of us. But yeah, I think he's right on the money. I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons why InfoCom is significant for residential integrators. And one he touched on, which is the crossover. There are opportunities for us to not only help our clients by maybe giving them advice if they ask us questions about commercial projects, but also business opportunities for us. I mean, we're asked quite often, to go in and look at a project. If we have a client who we did their home for and they had a good experience with us, hopefully, then they'll think about us if they go to upgrade the AV on their office, right? And so we do some light commercial work, and I think having a knowledge, a working knowledge of sort of the differences between residential and commercial is super important. And then, the other thing I would say to that is also, it's not just about the crossover of residential guys being able to work in commercial, but conversely, it's also about the crossover of technology. And there is a lot of overlap, and it's not, it's no longer the case that one is completely isolated from the other. And a lot of the technologies that people are talking about at InfoCom are technologies that people are also asking about in their homes. And one of the big ones that comes to mind now is sort of teleconferencing and technologies such as that people want. A lot of people now are getting more into flexible work schedules, and you've got the millennial workforce that's growing up and starting to buy homes. And these are people that sort of have a different approach about work, generally speaking. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot more people putting, these sort of technologies into their homes because they want to have flexible work schedules and be able to work out of a home office. And there's crossover there. And that's just one example. So I think there's overlap both ways. The technology bleeds over, and also our ability as integrators to bleed over and cross over from one to the other. Super important.
Well, yeah, and speaking of flexible workforce and teleconferencing and things like that, you might find yourself needing a USB camera, maybe a PTZ USB camera. Might be a good time right now to jump over to the Vadio booth. I was able to
very good
to get some time with Mike Brandis, who's with Vadio now. And he just kind of gave me a brief overview of some of what they're showcasing this year at InfoCom. And what do you think, Jason? You ready to roll this next clip?
Yeah, and we didn't even plan that segue ahead of time, so that was pretty good.
It's nice when it just kind of falls into place like that. This camera.
Let's go ahead, Nate.
No, this camera is pretty cool too. I was messing around with it. They had a nice little joystick and camera control pad right there, and man, you can really zoom in and see a lot of different things here.
Awesome. Let's jump in.
All right, here we go. Okay, so is it okay if I use this for a possible episode of the AV Shop Talk podcast?
Sure. Absolutely.
All right, great. I'm here with Mike Brandis and Chris Netto. Mike, got to tell me, what's new with Vadio this year?
We're introducing, this is actually our first show where we're not introducing a big product. We're just kind of showcasing what we have and what's in the field and what people are already loving. We're showcasing our RoboShot 12 USB, which we'll be releasing in another week.
Okay, the USB camera, the PTZ USB camera.
1080p, 30 frames a second uncompressed, or 720p, 60 frames a second uncompressed.
Okay.
Scary clear, you can pick the neck hair off someone at 9 feet.
I like that. I know you need that.
Well, everybody needs to see the neck hair,
Yeah.
right? I mean, geez.
Just don't stand too close.
Yeah. Well, the nose hair is really what you want to avoid.
We're also showcasing our AV Bridge Matrix Pro, our 4x2 video switcher with an integrated 8x4 audio matrix. Presents a USB output simultaneous to an IP stream and a HDMI output simultaneous to our proprietary display extension format.
Okay. Cool. So now, what's the main application for that? Is that more? That's obviously commercial
you
uses,
name it.
but
From video conferencing where you need more than one camera look to lecture capture to telehealth where a nurse can hit a button on a wall and change a camera preset and a zoom distance without ever having to touch an interface. We've had a lot of success with this device in multiple markets. It's something we're really proud of.
okay, cool. And I see you've got the Monopoly theme going here. Last year was like, what was it like?
Last year we were hippies. This year we're
like
playing Monopoly.
Woodstock. Okay.
So we're going from being hippies to capitalists, I guess.
Awesome. Thanks for weighing in. Where can people find you on Twitter?
You can find me on Twitter at MikeBrandisAV, and you can find us on Twitter at Vaddio, VADDIO.
All right, man. Thanks, Mike. All right, so you heard it from Mike there. What do you think?
Yeah, perfect example of what we were just talking about. And this is technology that, I haven't worked with Vaddio's products before, but it's getting to a point now where there's so much crossover that I'm listening to that clip and my wheels are already turning with, opportunities of ways that I could implement this technology in a residential setting. One of the examples that he cited there was telehealth. Mm-hmm. And this is a market that I'm very interested in watching and sort of seeing if there's opportunities there in the future. The aging in place market. Mm-hmm. We've got a huge population of baby boomers that are coming to age and coming to that age where they're going to need to kind of make a decision. And for very obvious reasons, people prefer to age in place as opposed to going into like a nursing facility. And I think that's really a market where something like that could come into play. Being able to kind of do telehealth and check in with your doctor or a nurse and just sort of have that presence, that face-to-face interaction. It's just so much different than a phone call. And there's a lot of reasons why that's important, and just the body language and being able to kind of gauge somebody's reaction to something. And there's a million reasons why that's important. And I think telehealth is a great example, like the example we cited before, working out of a home office, having remote workers, all of that. And that all crosses over into residential. And, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on it as a commercial guy.
Yeah. The Vaddio product that I find really intriguing is this AV bridge, which, as Mike kind of went through really quickly there. I mean, if you've got like a computer and you want to just do a Skype call or something like that, and you want to integrate that into, with pro AV equipment, that's like the perfect product to do it. You've got your balanced audio inputs and outputs and USB to the computer. And, I think that adds a lot of flexibility for all kinds of applications. I mean, the telehealth thing is definitely starting to take off. I mean, you're starting to see, doctors using that stuff to Skype or to FaceTime or to chat. I mean, that type of technology to talk with clients. So I think the products like the Bridge and the RoboShot camera, will kind of be this like, medium size, without having like a full blown video conferencing setup, you can do some cool stuff with computers, off the shelf computers. So that's why I find that product pretty intriguing.
Very cool. Yeah, it's an interesting clip and certainly product that I would look at. I'm familiar with them by name, and were I to field a request tomorrow from a client for any sort of setup, certainly Vaddio would be one of the first places I would look. And good to hear from Mike. I'm glad. It sounds like he's doing well there. I haven't corresponded with Mike online for quite some time, but I'm very a big fan of his work and happy to hear that he's sounds like he's doing very well there.
Yeah, he really likes it. I was, after we stopped recording, I was just chatting with him about it, and he really loves his new role and relocation and everything. So, yeah,
awesome.
Good to see him in person. He's one of the the AV tweeps out there on Twitter that is really putting himself out there, and there's a thriving community of AV pros out there on Twitter. So I love being able to meet people in person that I kind of see on Twitter. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
So the next thing I want to play for you was from the Avenue Alliance booth. So this was there's kind of like a rebrand going on here with AVB, right? So the new lingo here is TSN, for time sensitive networking. That's kind of like the new direction that they're moving in here. And I got to sit down with Alex Crabb and chat with her a little bit. And there's some leadership changes that have been occurring also with the Avenue Alliance over this past year, which are pretty interesting. So we'll touch on that too. But let's just jump right on into this clip here. I'll record. I'm just gonna set this right here. I'll just hold it. All right, I'm at the Avenue Alliance booth with Patrick Prothy and Alex Crabb. And we are talking about all things AVB right now. So there's some changes going on. There's this time-sensitive networking thing, or TSN. That's kind of like the buzz that I've been hearing about. So why don't you tell us what's new with AVB this year? What's new this year compared to maybe last year?
New this year versus last year is really bringing the four groups within Avenue together. You have the Pro AV, you have consumer electronics, you have automotive, and you have the industrial controls, which just joined this year, and really bringing the AVB up a level. Time-sensitive networking is more appropriate for industrial controls, and really working on the standards for that base layer and how that applies across all the units. And so TSN is basically the next evolution of AVB. It builds on that and adds more. Goes deeper into the time-sensitive aspect of that. It's the next rev. But here at the show, we're really just trying to showcase real-world applications. There's been within this community, it's like, is this real? It's been in development for so long. Just really showing, here's some case studies. We show the live sound, a heavy metal band, where they don't have an IT department on staff, but they need a repeatable process. So it's just one cable, they plug it in, and it works all over AVB, running their concerts, and then showing some other applications like that, and then an ecosystem of AVB products.
Yeah, and so I was just in the presentation with Jeff, and he was talking about an installation with Meyer Sound at some big college sports stadium. What was it?
Oh, was it Berkeley?
Berkeley, I think it was. And they did some pretty rigorous testing there, and he went pretty far in depth into the types of testing that they do. So that seems like it's like a really important thing that you guys are working really hard on, is to test the equipment and make sure it's up to standard. So I guess, has the certification program changed at all, or what's it like for a manufacturer to get that certification? What do they have to do?
So the certification program, as technology evolves, it's always evolving too. Developing the standards, building on these standards. Technology doesn't stand still, but it's built on standard Ethernet, so it's future-proof and scalable. But going through the University of New Hampshire is the certifying body that Avenue has partnered with, and you go through that process. Jeff can certainly speak to it better than I, but it really helps you develop a better product, because you see the pluses and minuses, and you work through the issues. So after you get through the certification process, you have a real robust product that's going to work with other certified products. I mean, it's a really, really great thing to do to develop a better product. From a manufacturer standpoint, they're going to have a stronger product on the marketplace that's going to work and be more reliable.
Great.
And the testing has been, so we opened certification testing a year and a half ago for Pro A, and had our first switches and a bunch of end products come out over the last year, and several products over the last few months. But the testing started out sort of slow because we were building the test. So the first few products going in there were tweaking the tests, and now it's a lot more streamlined process. We have a lot of products from member manufacturers in the pipeline now.
Great. So what's the big takeaway for maybe somebody who wasn't at the show, didn't get to stop by the booth? What's like, in a nutshell, what's the big takeaway for Avenue this year?
I would say visit avnu.org. We have a new video that really talks about at a high level what AVB TSN is, and the value of AVB certification, and that I think we've been in this. There's been a lot of hype initially and a lot of concern that it's just not going anywhere. But I think really right now we're gaining momentum rapidly. We have over 85 members, and I think it's just on the cusp of kind of coming out of that dip. If you look at the hype cycle, we're in that little trough of disillusionment, I guess you would call it. But now we're really gaining momentum. But it's taken a while, but it's going to be here for the long term.
All right, great. Well, thanks for weighing in, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, so that was a little chat got to have there on the show floor. I love hearing the sounds in the background there.
Yeah, it's good to hear from them. AVB, like they alluded to in that clip, there is one of these technologies that it's been a little quiet. We haven't heard a lot from them. We had Greg Schlechter on the show, long time ago. The date is eluding me, but it had to be over a year ago, and we were talking about the technology, and AVB it's an interesting technology to me on the consumer electronics residential side. I'm still, to be honest, kind of struggling to see the real kind of value add, but I totally see it with things like commercial integration, live sound, pro audio. I think it was super interesting to me how he alluded to sort of forgive me, I didn't listen to these clips ahead of time, so I didn't prepare any notes, but I think he called it like industrial control or something along those lines. And that was very interesting to me. I think that sort of speaks to, in my opinion, what's happening with AVB and this transition to, the TSN or time-sensitive networking terminology. I think these guys have realized that what they're onto in terms of, prioritizing network packets and sort of doing that automatically, based on this technology, has probably some broader implications for things that potentially go well beyond audio video. And I think that may have something to do with the rebranding. I'm totally speculating. I don't know that to be a fact, but the fact that they're really sort of putting the emphasis on the time-sensitive networking and sort of rebranding in that regard, I think speaks to something that they've realized that, they're on to something important, and there may be some broader applications for it. And, I do hope that they're around for the long haul. I think he's probably right. There is a hype cycle with any new technology. AVB, is not immune to that. You get, when it's new out of the gate, everybody's talking about it, everybody's excited about it. And then you fall into the trough of disillusionment. Mm-hmm. And then, that's when things have to kind of shake out and you figure out, hey, is this for real or is it not? And if they can, persevere and come through that and continue on the path that it sounds like they're on, then I think it's a technology that's here for the long haul. And I think there's a lot of applications where it could be, very useful.
Yeah, I do think it's here for the long haul. And just to follow up, when you first started out there, Greg. So we did have Greg Schlechter on in April of 2014 to talk about what the Avenue Alliance was up to. And Greg's obviously with the Alliance, also works for Intel, and that's in episode 3. So if you go to avshoptalk.com/episode 3, you can hear our chat with Greg. But the reason I think it is here for the long haul is because I think they're doing their due diligence. I think it's easy for people to say, well, what have you done for me lately? But then on the other hand, nobody wants a half-baked product. And I think what you see the Avenue Alliance doing is some pretty rigorous testing and creating certifications, and they're doing things the right way. They're trying to make sure everything is vetted and everything is tested and up to snuff, and they're going through the University of New Hampshire's, testing facility. So, mm-hmm. It's kind of like, you're never going to make everybody happy, right? Because people want the solution out and they want it accepted widely, but then on the other hand, they don't want a half-baked thing either. And this is one of the things I was chatting with Jeff and with Patrick and with Alex about, at the show there, is it seems like they're going through the right motions, and it's just kind of a matter of time. But you know what? Let me jump into the next clip. I've got another clip here that kind of I think is a really important bit of advice here, especially with people kind of criticizing AVB because of the lack of adoption from some of the big internet giants like Cisco, for example. So anyway, we'll just let the clip play and we'll talk about it. Okay, so one more bit of kind of big news this year, or at least in the last year and a half or so. is there's some new leadership on the Avenue team. So can you tell us more about that, Alex?
Yeah, sure. So, our president and chairman Rick Kreifeld stepped down because he changed positions at his company, and so we did a vote this year to bring on new leadership in the board. And as the standards started evolving, Avenue started evolving. We brought on this fourth segment this year, the industrial segment. And so as the organization started growing bigger, we decided to split the chairman and president role. And now we have the new chairman is Kevin Stanton from Intel, who's been involved with Avenue for a long time, but now is taking on this role on the board. And then our new president is Gary Stubing from Cisco, which he's been involved in a lot of different standards groups and alliances and knows a lot about certification processes. So he's bringing all that knowledge to us, which is great. And also really speaks to the commitment that Cisco and Intel, these big IT giants, have to AVB-TSN.
Yeah, that sounds definitely like important news to make note of, having somebody from Cisco joining the team like that, in that type of role. I think that's pretty exciting for the alliance.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Okay, so that I definitely wanted to include that there. I think. What do you think about that, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like big news. You never know with these sort of high-level corporate, I guess corporate maybe not the best word, but these high-level sort of repositioning or, bringing in new leadership. You don't know what's necessarily going on behind the scenes, but it sounds to me like it's all good news in terms of at least who they're getting in place to replace who's stepping down. They've got some big names. They're names I'm not intimately familiar with, but at least, people involved with obviously very large companies like Cisco. Sounds like he's got quite a background in doing things like this, and obviously that's super important. I mean, they're starting a new standard, and I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of there has been a delay, and we haven't heard much out of AVB or TSN in quite some time. But I think you got to look at the side that you were alluding to, and that's we don't need another half-baked standard. We don't need something out there on the market where people are able to just go put the little AVB stamp on there, and then you got to go buy it and just cross your fingers and hope that it works. Another HDMI, right? Like we've got enough of that to deal with. And so I think HDMI is one of these topics we talk about a lot. It gets people kind of heated up, and I think that obviously not a direct comparison, but look, if you're developing a standard and you're doing a certification process, that's hard. It's a lot of work to do that. And I think there's probably been some challenges behind the scenes that none of us are privy to. But again, I do think it's an interesting technology. I think there's some things that they're doing there to kind of maybe expand beyond audio video. I'll be interested to see that. But in any event, it was good to hear from them and kind of get an update on what's been going on.
Yeah. So then just to recap, they're pursuing four big segments of the market there: the Pro AV, consumer, automotive, and now industrial control. So that industrial control is a big part of it. Interesting to see how this all ties in with the IoT from the very beginning of our conversation tonight.
Yeah, definitely. I think that just that broad theme of connectivity is something that we're paying attention to on a daily basis in the connected home, and I think on the commercial side, it's really no different. And there's a lot of opportunity there, and still a lot of figuring out to do in terms of we've got a lot of connected devices now, and we can connect things to the network that we never were able to connect to the network before. But so what? What does that mean? Why is that significant? And truthfully, we're still figuring that out. I mean, we're very early in this we're still in the hype cycle, right? We'll go back to the hype cycle example, and I think we're still kind of in that initial hype, and everybody's excited about it. But what's the significance? Why is this important? And I think that still really, really remains to be seen.
Yep. All right. So that's pretty much all we had for the clips, at least for this
clips,
episode.
Yeah. I wanted to hear. Go ahead, Nate.
No, I've got like 30 something clips here from the show, but obviously if we kept going, the episode would be like 6 hours long. So. We'll just do these few clips here, and then we'll see what we can get coming out to you guys for more content in the future.
Yeah, I mean, sitting here on the other side of the country, I got to tell you, I would love to see if you can get more of this stuff put out there and put together in maybe a different format that other people can hear. I know you had a ton of clips though. We obviously can't cover them all. And I think we picked a few here tonight that were interesting and sort of touched on a couple of the broader themes of the show. And I appreciate you going out there and capturing that that audio from the floor there, Nate. I am curious to know, like, having spent that time out there at InfoComm, and what was, maybe if you could pick one, or maybe we'll give you two if you need two, but if you could pick one, what was maybe one of the biggest products or kind of stories that you took away from the show?
One of the most interesting ones for me was this AptoVision Blue River NT chipset. So it doesn't sound very very exciting, but I guess that's just because
everybody just slid forward in their seats.
I think I'm just turning into a bigger and bigger dork as I spend more and more time in the integration world.
Yeah, that tends to happen.
Yeah. So previously, when we talked to Mika Riesling of the HD-based T Alliance, let's see, that was back in episode 2. The trend was, and that was, as of like March 2014. So the industry trend was 4K 60 with a 420 color space. And that's pretty much what everybody was doing, almost everybody. Companies like Lightware were doing higher bandwidth stuff, but for the most part, that was the trend. And now with this AptoVision Blue River NT chipset, you're able to get 4K 60 with a 444 color space. So it's
Here
not,
we go.
But this is like the first time we're starting to, see this kind of emerge, and it's kind of like poking its head out in a couple of different ways. So this chipset is being used by companies like Aurora Multimedia and their IP-based T solution, and there's a company called ZV that looks like they're using the same chipset. And the big takeaway is you're able to use an off-the-shelf 10 gigabit Ethernet switch to route your video.
Interesting.
And it's this high bandwidth 4K UHD. Quote uncompressed, right? There's a little bit of compression, but it's very, very slight.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of a cool trend. Again, it's the network is involved too. We're talking about Ethernet switches to route video. So that's where things are going.
Yeah, that's a very cool technology. I'm actually working on a project right now where we had the client kind of add some sort of video distribution features at the end where we really weren't set up to do that, and we're speccing a solution right now from Just Add Power, and they do HDMI over IP as well. And that's a very interesting technology just in general. There's a lot of applications for that, and it can certainly come in handy for large designs where you have maybe a ton of displays, or sort of designs like issues where we ran into where we have a system that isn't really set up for distribution. But if you can get that HDMI onto the network as packets, then it makes routing it around, a lot more flexible. I think to your point about this specific chipset, this is obviously a theme we've been watching now for a couple years running in terms of just the huge amount of bandwidth that's starting to be required to get this sort of video signal around. When you talk about 4K 60, 444 color space, I don't know the numbers right offhand, but that's a big data transfer rate. You've got a lot of data moving down that wire in order to do that, and any technology that's going to enable that or make it easier for a manufacturer to enable it is important. It's significant, and it's something that we should all be paying attention to, because that's going to be really one of the big challenges moving forward. The video quality is getting ahead of our technology in terms of being able to route it around and support it. And I think that, like I said, any technology that makes that easier is one that we should all, as integrators, be paying attention to.
Yeah, so that's pretty much the big thing. I'm trying to think of anything else that I noticed that was like a really big takeaway. I think that was one of the big ones. I mean, there was a ton of really cool collaboration technologies out there. I wish I could remember the name of it. We were looking at some of these desktop computers where it's like literally a piece of glass on a desk, and you can, it's got like IR cameras shooting up, like 32 different infrared cameras shooting up from the bottom, so that you can touch this thing and I forget how many different ways you can do it, but
Like
you can do all
something out of Minority Report or something.
Yeah, that type of stuff. There's some pretty cool
Right.
stuff. There's a lot of different angles. A lot of people bringing collaboration stuff to market, and a lot of different angles about how it can be useful. But definitely some pretty cool stuff out there.
Yeah. I was watching a lot of different stories, and certainly not trying to watch the show with blinders on in terms of just I'm a residential guy. That's all I'm looking for. Like we talked about earlier, I think it's important to understand all these technologies and be versed in both of them. But I do think from a residential perspective, some of the stories that I found interesting were, maybe a little bit different than a commercial integrator. I saw Crestron is introducing like a Pinpoint mobile app for enterprise technology, and Pinpoint is an interesting technology to me, and this is all about microlocation. So you put little Bluetooth beacons around your, in this particular example, they'd be around your office or your conference room or whatever it is. And then, that adds a layer of intelligence to your building where it can not only tell that you as a person are inside of the building, but it can tell what room you're in, or, alternatively, who's in the room. So if somebody walks into a conference room, the theory at least was that, using this Pinpoint system from Crestron is that, okay, well, if it's, Nate walking into the room at this time, we know that it's a meeting with the following people, and this is what he needs to do. So we're going to turn the projector on to the right input, and, we're going to set the lights to the level that Nate wants it, or anything like that. I mean, you can go on and speculate about the applications there, but, this idea of micro-location awareness is one of these perfect examples of, we're adding intelligence and connectivity and to buildings that we weren't able to do before, but I think we're still trying to find the really significant or compelling use cases for that. And, some of the video I watched with this Pinpoint solution for Crestron, it sort of cited some examples that were, okay, well, maybe that would work, but really it's sort of in a way still a solution looking for a problem. But there are a lot of applications where I think microlocation is going to come into play and is going to be significant, and it's just interesting to watch to see what's going on there. And that's a technology that's going to cross over obviously into residential, and it's something that I'm paying pretty close attention to. I think that Crestron had a number of things going on with the DM system that I thought were kind of interesting. Just Add Power, go back to them. I was citing a recent design I'm working on to use their product, and they had a solution, a video tiling deal, where you're able to put up like 4 displays onto one TV and kind of do some interesting things there. And I know I have clients who, for instance, big sports fans. And so if you had a big 85-inch TV using this system, you could theoretically have 4 satellite boxes and route 4 different football games up there or whatever it is. So there's some interesting potential for applications there, not only on the commercial side, but also on the residential side. And then I think just obviously the broad theme of the IoT and connectivity, it was one that we've touched on quite a bit here tonight, and was definitely one that I was looking at InfoComm for stories about, especially, given their decision to put it in the keynote.
Yeah, that's all good stuff right there. One of the other things that I wanted to mention too was when this is kind of off topic a little bit, so I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but I wanted to give a shout out to somebody who I met at the Tweet Up, and this was kind of like a cool experience for me. Is that when I got into the Tweet Up, somebody recognized me from the podcast, and that was like the first time that ever happened. And so that was kind of a cool thing. But Chris Backus from or Bacchus, I'm not actually sure how you pronounce his last name, but he's with AMX. On Twitter, he goes by the at AV Control Guy, and he's a big fan of the podcast. It was just cool to chat with him and kind of hear his perspective on it. And Jason, he knew all about how you were moving and what was going on from our previous episodes and all that. So definitely, we love connecting with you guys out there on Twitter, and the podcast is here just to kind of grow the industry and make the industry a better place, build community, network, and it's really cool when you start to see those things start to unfold.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. I think that's awesome. I am always happy to hear from anybody who's a fan of the show. It's a labor of love for us. It's something we really enjoy doing, put a lot of time and effort into putting these shows together. And anytime we can get any positive feedback like that, either through an email or, that's a really cool experience, right? Meeting somebody who's actually knows you and is a fan of the show. I'm sure that was pretty exciting for you. So to that end, just want to thank everybody for listening. I really, Nate, appreciate you going out there and kind of getting some of these audio clips together from the show. I think people listening who are in a similar position to me, who maybe had to watch the show from afar, probably really appreciative as well. So enjoyed kind of coming together and doing this episode with you here.
Yeah, and if people want to get more, I actually took some vlog videos out on the show floor. I didn't even tell you about this yet, Jason, but I have some videos up on YouTube, on another YouTube channel. And it was just off the cuff, raw video of me walking through the Infocom show. So if you want to get a couple videos, if you go over to the Live Sound 101 YouTube channel, there's like a little playlist I set up, just called Infocom, 15, and you can see, me traveling to the show. You can see day 1, day 2, day 3. And just some thoughts about the show. I actually might even do a little video about what swag was really good. I got a pile of free stuff right here at my feet right now, so I might do one of those at some point too.
Awesome. Well, we'll be sure to get that up into the show notes, which you can find at avshoptalk.com/episode 18. That's 18. And Nate, once again, had a great time doing this. Do you have any plans for the 4th of July coming right up here?
Yeah, I think we're going to get together with the family, do a little bonfire, watch some fireworks. It's going to, of course, be interesting with a 9-month-old and a 3-year-old trying to stay out late watching things blow up in the sky. So that may or may not be a good thing, depending on how the kids interpret fireworks. But
you don't know until you try, I guess.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to do that. Happy 4th of July, everybody. What are you doing, Jason?
Yeah, actually, nothing too exciting. As you alluded to, our move there, that's coming right up. We've got really only a couple of weeks left until we need to be loading stuff onto the truck and shipping out to Denver. And so we're going to take advantage of the long weekend and try to get some work around the apartment done. And actually just looking forward to that. Really, not an exciting thing, not a big party, certainly by any stretch, but the move is very exciting. And I think to have the holiday weekend kind of leading into that is a good thing. And then, we've got a couple friends here in Los Angeles that may swing by for a casual dinner. So pretty low key, but of course, looking forward to a nice long weekend.
Awesome. Yeah, that move's coming up, man, right around the corner.
It is. Don't remind me.
Got to get everything packed up. Got to get what are you going to get, like a U-Haul or something?
Yeah, we priced out a couple different professional moving companies, and it was just, I felt like a couple different estimates, and I felt like a lot more expensive than I wanted it to be or thought that it was going to be.
Yeah.
And both estimates were right around the same price. And so I figured, well, I guess that's just what it costs to hire movers. And really, we've got a 2-bedroom place. We're not moving a whole house full of stuff. And I just didn't feel like it warranted that sort of price tag. So we're just going to hoof it. We're going to hire some people here to help us load the truck. And then I'll get behind the wheel and get on the road.
It's all in the packing. You get every box packed as tight as possible. You don't want anything moving. That's the secret.
That's it.
Heavy stuff on the bottom, light stuff on top. You'll be good to go.
Good advice.
All right. Well, that does it for this episode of AV Shop Talk. We will talk shop with you in the next one. AV Shop Talk podcast is produced independently by Jason Griffin and myself, Nate Schneider. Musical contributions have been provided by Colin Owens. Voiceover contributions have been provided by John Perry. For more information, please visit avshoptalk.com/episode 18.
Roger that.